Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Gaming with me, Tony Mo, and we're here today to talk about the Division's 1.1 update. I got to spend the entire day with it yesterday, well, mostly the entire day. I will admit I got a little bit caught up in Dark Souls 3, but I did end up playing about 5-6 hours of it, roaming around with my team. We spent some time in the Dark Zone, so I've got a lot to say about everything that was introduced in 1.1, and admittedly, there's quite a bit of disappointing changes. You know, things that were supposed to be alterations to the game that we were supposed to look forward to, but in reality, a lot of these changes haven't really implemented the sort of shockwave in how we play that a lot of us were looking forward to, and it's really disappointing. And it all kind of culminates with this one point that Massive and everybody working on the Division is very, for some reason, they're very concerned about actually giving the player loot. You know, they really don't want to give us loot, and when they do, it's, you know, it's garbage loot. Like, the way the loot drops work is just not the way they claimed it was going to work. Now, let me just gloss over the PvE stuff real quick, because honestly, there's not a huge amount of changes to the PvE portion of the game. Yes, you have the Incursion. That's something we're going to talk about at a later date. So if you came here for Incursion news, you're going to have to wait. I'm still recording footage for that. That's something I'll probably do in the coming weeks. But other than that, all you have are assignments. You have the weekly and daily assignments, and to be honest, those are a bit of a letdown. Now, I've only played through 2 resets of the daily assignment, and I've seen the weekly assignment, and the issue I have with them is they don't do anything to alter the way you play the game. They don't really feel like a set of challenges. One of the things that the bounties did in Destiny occasionally was, yeah, they had a lot of just go kill this bounties, but they also had bounties that required you to get kills with specific weapons, like go get kills with fusion rifles, go get kills with shotguns. That's what made bounties fun, and they made them, you know, a little bit more challenging. It would maybe force you to take on a strike or a certain mission with a different weapon. That's the type of thing we need to see in the Division. You know, we should be forced to use methods that we wouldn't normally use when completing a mission in order to complete and acquire these bounties, these daily challenges, these assignments. Instead, it's everything. All we've had right now are combat ones, which are just kill things, crafting things, and then we've had Dark Zone stuff, which is also to just go out and kill things. None of them have been excessively unique. None of them have said go into the Dark Zone and get kills with shotguns. You know, go into find the Rikers and kill them with a pistol. So they're really bare bones, and they just kind of happen as time goes on. They just feel like an additional way to earn a few Phoenix credits, and it's really passive. I would say the only thing that isn't passive is some of the questing assignments, especially for the weekly one, which wants you to break down a large amount of components. But other than that, it's not as strong as I had hoped it would be, and hopefully that's something they can change and move forward towards improving in the future. And maybe, you know, that's just all we've seen because it's only been 2 days, and maybe there is potential for some of these more intricate assignments to pop up, ones that will ask us to use our pistols or our shotguns or a certain weapon. I think that will be a lot of fun. Again, it'll kind of break you out of your typical Division routine and force you to do something a little bit more challenging. So hopefully those can improve and change over time, or hopefully they just already are planned to. But that's really it for PvP, right? You know, we got some of the changes to the hard mode and the challenge mode mission in terms of what we can now earn. You know, level 30 named bosses will drop high-end equipment based on their level. We're also going to be obtaining crafting materials now from doing the daily missions, which is a nice bonus. Depending on the difficulty, you'll earn a different type of crafting materials, which is definitely nice. And of course, now, the only area in which we earn Phoenix credits, or at least the only area in which we need to spend Phoenix credits, is that advanced weapon vendor at the top of the tech wing. So he has a much larger inventory. And we're talking about gear score 204 stuff, that's like 800 Phoenix credits. He's got a lot of 163 and 182 stuff. He even has some of the components, some of the blueprints to craft some of the new gear sets. He's got 2 pieces for each of the gear sets, actually. Well, for 3 of the gear sets, I should say. The Path of the Nomad will only be obtainable, it seems, currently through the Dark Zone. So, you know, I think the flux, the issue with 1.1 starts in the Dark Zone. I mean, it starts outside of the Dark Zone with the way that these high-end drops are working for level 30 plus named enemies. Now, what they told us in the patch notes and the update notes was that depending on the level of the named enemy that you kill, you will acquire gear score based on that level. So, gear score 163 was supposed to drop off of level 30 enemies, and then as you increase the difficulty of the enemy up to level 32, you're supposed to get higher gear scored items. Well, that's not something that's guaranteed. It's actually something that is only a chance. And in the 5 hours that my group spent, I think just in the Dark Zone yesterday, we saw no items above gear score 182. And we were going out and we were eliminating level 32, level 31 named NPCs all day long. That's like all we did was spend time in the very up north of the DZ. We only trekked down to the south occasionally when we were waiting for you know, mobs to respawn or if we wanted to claim a supply drop. So that was incredibly disappointing. You know, these are supposed to be places we were supposed to go to get, you know, really good gear, because why else are you in the north? You're in the north because you're geared enough to take on those enemies. Why would I want to see gear drop that is less effective than the gear I already have? And again, this is where the issue stands. They're afraid to give us loot. Like, I don't know what the problem is. They want us to just keep farming loot that we don't need, and then maybe once every 25 pieces of loot now, we'll see a piece of loot that we actually need to get our hands on. It's ridiculous and silly. It makes no sense, especially when half the loot that you're getting are performance mods, gear mods. Like, there's a lot of loot in the game. They're just afraid to give us access to it. And they're also, for some reason, I feel like they're stuck in this thought process that if they did drop weapons for us frequently, then we'd all have, you know, the best guns in the game. Well, all these weapons have different roles. So even when you do get a weapon, you know, I got like a 183 shotgun or whatever that from the Dark Zone, you know, it was terrible. It's awful roll. The damage was really low. It was just, it was garbage, you know? So it's like, and give us loot, Ubisoft. This is a loot-based game, you know, we're supposed to be fishing through this loot, like trying to find out what works best for us, but we're not even getting anything. And that was really what disappointed me more than anything. You know, I can deal, I think, with going to the north and killing level 32 named enemy and getting a gear mod, but at least, you know, make that gear mod or make that attachment actually worth my time. You know, I'm getting drops for a character that would be, you know, gear score like 160. That's the value of these drops. I've got stuff that blows it out of the water. And of course, at the end of the day, the thing that makes this all that much worse, you know, right? The idea that we're not really getting these high gear score drops like they said we should have been getting off these bosses, is that crafting is still at the top of the list for making equipment because of this. Why would I go out, farm level 32 named enemies that aren't dropping anything above gear score 162 half the time? Occasionally I get a gear score 182, when I can save up my Phoenix credits, save up my Dark Zone credits, increase my Dark Zone rank up to potentially 75 or 90 now, and buy gear score 204 and gear score 214 gear set items. Blueprints, again, blueprints. Crafting was supposed to take a backseat. That little infographic that I talked about a couple days ago with you guys, yeah, in a way, they've altered that infographic, but only by increasing the high-end drops off of named enemies. It doesn't mean that we're actually all going to want to acquire those drops, because at the end of the day, as I said, it is still more effective to save up your Phoenix credits, go to your advanced weapon vendor, buy the gear, buy the blueprints, go to the Dark Zone vendors. They haven't changed anything. Nothing has changed. They just started throwing more high-end loot at us, and again, none of it is relevant for the location that you're dealing with the enemies. This is the same problem with XP gains. You know, you go to the north, you kill a high-level enemy, he barely gives you any XP. Well, now you're going to the north, you're killing high-level enemies, you're dealing with all the other players, all the other AI there, and you're getting garbage, man. You're receiving nothing worth your time. An entire night between 4 people that I played with, nothing. None of us got anything that was worthwhile at gear score 182. And that's really all I was expecting. You know, I wasn't really expecting like gear score 204 to drop, but at the same time, why shouldn't I be? You know, why should I only have to craft gear score 204, the, you know, potentially the best stuff in the game? If that's the kind of stuff that wants to drop off the incursion, then okay, I understand. I get that. I get that, you know, the route that they wanted to go with that. But at the same time, a lot of us are just trying to obtain gear sets off the incursions. You know, they've created a flux within their game. And this is something that they've been doing since day one. You know, I really enjoy the core aspects of the Division still. I like playing with my friends. I like going into the Dark Zone and playing with one another. I really do. Those are the parts of the game that are fun, just being with one another. But right now, all of the other components of the Division are fighting with one another. You know, there are RPG elements, you know, all these stats and numbers that I think go unnecessarily deep, that are throwing people into the wind. You've got people making ridiculous min-max builds that are essentially unstoppable in the DZ. Like, there's a huge amount of just balancing issues, and not even just on a PvP perspective, I'm talking about just on a cohesion perspective from the game. You know, and now they're taking away where we spend Phoenix credits, they're trying to change up how we obtain gear. None of it's falling into place properly. It all really feels like a mess right now. It's frustrating, you know, it really is, because there, you know, there should just be this very clear sense of progression, and there's not. You know, you go into the Dark Zone and you feel like, okay, I'm gonna, you know, head out with my group. We're gonna kill all these bosses. We're gonna have all these great situations in the DZ, and we're gonna get, you know, some good gear at the end of the day. And then you walk away with next to nothing. You pretty much walk away with a bunch of gear that is only really worth selling or breaking down to turn into crafting materials, so you can then craft the gear that you know 100% is going to be worth your time. That's all a bit frustrating. It really genuinely is. I don't know what their plans are for the future, how they're going to change these sorts of things. You know, this is just a free update at the end of the day. We do have to remember that. This is a free addition to the gameplay experience, but that doesn't mean that we should judge it any less harshly in terms of the decisions that it makes. And right now, the direction that they're going doesn't actually align with the direction that they said they were going to go in those patch notes. Which, by the way, weren't incredibly specific, because there's a lot of other changes that I've noticed, including a decreased gain in Phoenix credits for daily hard mode. You used to get 15, now you're getting 10. They've done a lot of things. They've changed a lot of elements without being very clear to the player in those patch notes, and I don't like that. There's a lot of hidden balancing decisions going on by them, because they're like so concerned about keeping the player playing. Well, you know what's going to stop me from playing and stop the group of people from playing? When we're spending all this time in the Dark Zone and we're not getting anything. Like I said, you know, I really like The Division for its gameplay, for the PvP and the co-op nature of it, but that can only last so long, you know? That can only last so long, and when I'm in there spending all this time, and my squad's spending all this time, and we're having fun, and then we're being let down with gear drops on a regular basis, it's going to start to wear thin for a lot of people. You know, they think they're dragging out the gameplay, they think they're extending the amount of time that people are going to spend playing it. That may be true for a very small group of people who are essentially addicted to the experience, but there's a large group of us that aren't. We're playing because we enjoy the gameplay, and if we're not being rewarded appropriately, eventually we're going to take a walk. We're going to skedaddle. Now, this issue continues moving forward with the supply drops. So this is the last thing we're going to talk about today, are the supply drops. Supply drops, right? Great idea. Great idea. We're going to drop these supply drops. You're going to see 3 or 4 of them, dump into the Dark Zone. You're going to be able to go run and pick them up, fight off some named NPCs, get some loot from the named NPC, plus the loot from the supply crate. Awesome. Now, I've had some good moments with the supply drops. They've created some really interesting PvP encounters, including one guy who thought for some reason that there was 3 of us there, that he would just come in by himself and try and snatch the supply drop. Well, you know, let's just say his day didn't end very well. But the issue at hand is that my squad yesterday, plus me solo, while I was playing alone in the morning, picked up a total of 6 supply drops. You want to know how many of them had high-end items? 0. 0. They've created an endgame event, essentially, for the Dark Zone that drops superior gear. That is gear score like 131, 140. Gear score... supply drops that we're supposed to fight over that drop worthless gear to the players who are fighting over them. What this means is that very quickly, just yesterday in fact, a lot of people stopped going for the supply drops. I think the only people going for supply drops were those people just booting into the game who weren't aware that if they farmed 6 supply drops, they wouldn't get anything out of them. Now, I don't know if there's a small chance for high-end gear to drop in these supply drops. They're not very clear on their loot tables. It'd be nice to see that actually revealed to us. But as I said, 6 supply drops later, nothing has come of them. There have been some good encounters, and as I said, there is most often a named boss with those supply drops, so you get a high-end off that named boss at least. Sad thing is, if it's a level 32 named boss, we still didn't end up getting anything worthwhile off of it. So I don't know what they're doing with that. You know, if they want players to fight over these supply drops, if they want it to be a bit of a battle, a bit of a war, then they really need to consider what sort of loot's going to be inside. Because right now, nothing. And this has been, I've talked to a lot of people. You know, there's a lot of you guys who message me, who tell me stories about the game. I really appreciate that, by the way. No matter how long it is. You know, I've got multiple people who have sent me, like, you know, pretty much one-page stories about their day one with the DZ. I really appreciate that feedback. I really genuinely do. Because then I can look at that, and I can see an alternative perspective apart from mine. And I can say, it makes, you know, I'm more educated going into this discussion with you guys. I can sit down and I can say, boom. You know, I'm not the only one. I've got people who played as soon as the servers went up who didn't receive a damn thing out of these supply drops. So, again, they're afraid to give us loot, man. They're afraid to drop loot for us. They're absolutely terrified. And, you know, that a big indicator of that, I think, as well, is I've seen one of the new high-end named weapons. You want to know where it is? It's a level 90 blueprint that cost over 400,000 Dark Zone credits at one of the Dark Zone vendors. This is the type of thing that we should all be excited to get in a drop, you know? There's a lot of issues going on right now. A lot of issues going on right now with the Division and its end game stuff. Especially as we're getting to that point where there's not just a small group of people who are really sitting at end game who have played a lot of the game. Almost everyone's there at this point. Anyone who took the Division even slightly serious is there. My group's there. The people who are playing 400 hours a week are there. You know, everyone is right there. And this is when they should really be concerned about the decisions they make. And they're just screwing it up at every turn. Now, lastly, I did want to talk for Xbox One users. There is some pretty serious bug reports coming in. People losing their characters. Now, I do imagine this stuff is a server issue. You didn't actually lose your character. It hasn't been deleted. It's simply not showing up in the server, and hopefully that's something they can repair. But the fact that they've introduced an update, which was simply supposed to patch things, and it caused more issues. I know that sometimes that's just game development. I can understand that. But some of these really substantial game-breaking bugs have gone just a little bit too far. And it really does, you know, you beg the answer, how much more of a game could the Division be had it had another year in development? And obviously that's something that a publisher like Ubisoft is terrified at the thought of, because, oh, we announced the game 3 years ago, we can't wait any longer, just pop it out. It's a free update. You know, I'm happy with the changes. I just think they were implemented poorly, and I think if they can refine things, if they can finally start to give us loot and really pull back this crafting system, man, it's still at the forefront of the game, and it's ruining their game. You know, you look at Diablo 3. Diablo 3 launched with that auction house, and it ruined loot drops. It completely ruined the experience. Diablo and Blizzard recovered from that. It's possible. I think Ubisoft and Massive and Red Storm and Annecy and everyone working on the game, I think they can recover from this. I really genuinely think they can. But they have to actually look at the numbers, they have to look at the data, and they have to understand what type of experience they want to give the player. You know, if you want us to sit here and you want us to starve for loot, you know, we're going to start to leave. It's just as simple as that. We're going to start to leave. Like I said, the core gameplay can only keep your attention for so long, especially when there's other games coming out on a cooperative level. You know, we've got Battleborn and Overwatch. I know they're in different experiences, but a lot of us who play games like The Division are just as attracted to experiences like that. This is something they really have to consider. I want the game to do well, I really do, and I know it's a free update. I think it's nice that we're getting a free update. Like I said, they just need to refine the way they're implementing things. And I genuinely do. I look forward to that first big paid update, and I'm going to keep covering The Division as long as I find it enjoyable. But I want to just make that clear to you guys. You know, if a week from now or 2 weeks from now I'm not finding the game fun, we're going to step away and we're going to start to play something else. That's just as simple as it's going to be. And I imagine that a lot of you guys would do the same thing. And frankly, I urge you to do the same thing. Don't kill yourself on a game that is no longer providing fun in this moment value for you. Step away. Play something else with your group of friends. Come back to it when we see some substantial changes. I think right now Ubisoft is receiving a lot of feedback from the community, and I hope they take that to heart, and I hope that we see an update, a patch in the coming weeks that really addresses a lot of these issues. That's it for me, guys. So that's my thoughts on 1.1 right now. My team is still looking to finish up that incursion. We ran a bit of it yesterday. Rather upsettingly, it seems to be only one room, but that's something we'll talk about more in the coming days once I get like a full video out for that. Please let me know what you guys think of the changes. Like I said, some of you already have spoken to me through direct messages, but let me know. Spit it down in the comment section below. What do you love? What do you hate? I still have had a lot of great moments in the Dark Zone because of the supply drops, but I just don't think it's going to last that long. I really have. I've had some awesome moments, so if you got any stories to share regarding the DZ, feel free to throw it down in the comment section below. Stay safe out there, agents. I'll see you in the next one.